The time for silence is over.
But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups?
I came here to speak on behalf of Donald Trump.
Do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. You want to call them, what do you want to call them? Very fine people on both sides.
And for the white Christian people of this nation.
Give me a name. Give me a
White
name.
supremacists and
white
right,
like me to condemn?
white supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by.
In fourth degree, you get arrested or in a serious violent fight for the cause. Yes. I'm taking the low road. I'm punching them in the face.
So that.
I attacked a couple guys.
Very fine people on both sides.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us!
So I punched him in the face and I ripped his mask off. And then I punched him again.
President Trump retweeted a video showing a supporter making a racist statement.
White power! White power!
Very fine people on both sides.
Did Hitler do anything wrong? No!
Fuck him.
First precept of the truth of life. Remember it. Gas the
Let's have trial by combat.
And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists, right
Proud
militia?
Boys, stand back and stand by.
Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
Join me every Sunday afternoon for a new show where common citizens, you and I together, discuss with each other issues of today, where we demand proof and evidence is required, where we seek the truth and will not be silent. Join me this coming Sunday afternoon and take part in America's oldest and most honored tradition. Hello and welcome to the Left Speaks. My name is Chris. I'll be your host for today. Today is January the 10th, 2021. We are a few days removed from the insurrection attempt inspired by the President of the United States of America. It is not a good time in our country. Some of us have been warning against this. Some of us have been screaming into the void, and some of us have been flat being ignored by the constant warning signs that have been displayed by this president. To me, it is quite obvious that he bears a lot of responsibility for this. You do not get to follow somebody on the same stage after they just called for combat to overturn an election because of fraud that you have provided zero proof of, that has failed in court 63, 65 times now. Every single court has shot this nonsense down for lack of evidence. Every single one of them. You might as well be marching in and taking over the Capitol to demand proof of alien abductions. That's how absurd this is. Never in my lifetime did I think I would see the United States Capitol looted, stormed, desecrated by anybody, much less by American citizens. Never in my lifetime did I think I would see that happen and have it be encouraged by a sitting U.S. president. You do not get to tell the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by in case the election does not go your way, then invite everybody to a rally on the day that the election results are being confirmed that you lost, and tell them, we're going to march on the Capitol and I will be right there with you, and then throw up your hands and say, who would have thought they did that? Who would have thought that that would have happened? I told them to go down there peacefully. You told a group that since the moment they were founded has believed in committing violence in order to achieve their political goals to march on the U.S. Capitol. You encouraged this QAnon conspiracy bullshit for your benefit. And if this isn't enough, if even this is not enough to impeach a sitting president anymore, if there's more lines he has to cross before it's time to impeach him, whatever the hell line it is that you think he needs to cross first, it's going to be too late by that point to remove him from office. I'm speaking directly to all the conservatives out there, directly to all the Republican legislators that are throwing up their hands and going, but what do you do? You remove him. You take away the nuclear codes. You take away any right he has to give an order to any military unit whatsoever. You take away his access to national security information. And if this is not enough, if this is not enough for you to jump on board with getting rid of this guy, did it have to be successful before we could impeach him? Because by then, it's too damn late. If he'd declared martial law and the military and the police had gone along, sure, you can vote to impeach him all you want to at that point. It's not going to do you any damn good, but you can do it. They looted the United States Capitol building. They ransacked the place. They took 11 or 12 laptops with potentially classified government information on it. They stole podiums. There was a man in there in full tactical gear with flexible handcuffs, zip ties that the military and the police use in mass arrest situations to cuff people's hands together. On the floor of the United States Capitol. A woman, a former Air Force veteran, suffering from PTSD, who had voted for Obama and then switched over to Trump and went full QAnon conspiracy theory, the whole world's out to get Trump, was shot and killed trying to break into the floor of the United States Capitol. Let that sink in. A sitting United States president followed a speech, spoke off the same platform from behind the same podium as his attorney, who said that we needed a trial by combat, and then told his supporters to march down to the U.S. Capitol and that he would go with them. Now, of course, he didn't go with them because Trump is a coward. He's content to let you put your lives on the line for his bullshit and his lies, but he's going to go sit in his office. You guys that are still buying into this, that are still following it, need to seriously look in the mirror. Those of us that are on the progressive wing of politics in this country, sure, there are some that will overreact. There are some that will raise red flags when maybe they shouldn't. There are some that will take things too seriously when maybe they shouldn't. This, obviously, is not one of those times. If anything, we should have been more aggressive, not less. We should have been less silent and more vocal, not less. This is the first time the United States Capitol has fallen since the War of 1812. We didn't even lose the United States Capitol building during the fucking Civil War. But as you'll see shortly, thanks to this treasonous president, the Capitol, for the first time in its history, had the Confederate battle flag marching through the middle of it. This has got to be enough to remove a president, because if it's not, whatever is, by the time we reach that point, it'll be too late to actually do it. I'm not telling you you can't still be conservative. I'm not telling you you can't disagree with me about whether we should cut taxes for the wealthy 1% or whether we should raise taxes on the wealthy 1%. I'm not telling you you can't argue with me about whether we say Merry Christmas or Happy fucking Holidays. But democracy is non-negotiable. I'm not interested in hearing your excuses. I'm not interested in hearing your bullshit. I will not compromise on this, and neither will any other American, true American patriot. You wanted to see how far it would go? This far and no further. we're going to watch a quick recap of the timeline of what occurred.
Say hello, everybody.
We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. We're going to walk down to the Capitol because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
At this hour, our democracy is under unprecedented assault. The words of a president matter. At their best, the words of a president can inspire. At their worst, they can incite.
This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special.
To those who strove to deter us from our responsibility, you have failed. To those who engaged in the gleeful desecration of this, our temple of democracy, American democracy, justice will be done.
You looted the Capitol. And you only managed to delay the confirmation of President-elect Biden's victory by about 12 hours. You did something that hasn't been done in over 200 years. You seized the United States Capitol from under the control of we, the American people. And you only managed to delay democracy in action by about 12 hours. If you had won one court case that had proven this massive multi-state conspiracy election fraud theory that you have, if you had been able to present enough evidence in just one court case, you would have accomplished more than 12 hours. But you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that in front of Democrat-appointed judges. You couldn't do that in front of Republican-appointed judges. You couldn't even do that in front of judges that were appointed by President Trump himself. So you threw a temper tantrum, got 5 people killed, including a capital city police officer, and an Air Force veteran with PTSD. The lies, the conspiracy theories, the baseless claims without any evidence have accomplished what the terrorist on 9/11 couldn't do. Because the planes that were on their way to hit the Capitol, real American patriots back then, they took those down, if you remember. They gave their lives to prevent the Capitol being hit. But what foreign terrorism couldn't accomplish, President Trump, with his lies, has managed to do for 12 hours. I hope you're proud of yourselves. As far as I'm concerned, and I'm not speaking to the rational conservatives out there anymore, the ones that will actually oppose this and the ones that will vote against the people that are saying that this is okay. I'm speaking directly to the Trump supporters who are still Trump supporters even after this. I will never compromise with you. You have removed yourself from the conversation. When a child moves from the kids' table to the adult table and they throw a temper tantrum because we don't hand them the mashed potatoes that they want, we move them back to the kids' table. And you've managed to do that to yourself. When you can figure out and accept that democracy doesn't mean you always get your way, it means you get a vote and sometimes you lose, then we can have a conversation again. When you can figure out what the hell evidence is, and I'll give you a hint, it's not just some guy says. When you can figure out what evidence is, then we can have a conversation again. When you quit supporting baseless lies about our country and our democracy, then you can come back to the adult table again. Then we can have a conversation again. If you were somebody who didn't pay that much attention to politics before now, this is why you need to pay attention. We were this close. We were closer to losing our democracy than we have been, certainly in my lifetime. But probably since the Civil fucking War. I'm at a loss for words. I really am. And like I said, if this is not enough for the rational conservatives out there, the ones who vote Republican because that's what mommy and daddy always did, and they believe in tax cuts, and they believe in strong foreign policy, and they think Republicans are for all those things. The ones that I can have a debate with that present evidence and arguments and can admit and concede a point and say, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. And I'm not saying the ones that all come to my side. You can have a debate back and forth, and somebody can raise something new and you can say, hey, I haven't thought of that. Let me look into it. Let me get back to you. I've done that personally on this fucking channel. Those conservatives, you need to clean your own house. You need to get rid of these jackasses. Because if you keep covering for them, it's getting to the point where I can't tell the difference anymore. What's the point in having a discussion with you about how or whether we could afford universal health care when you're backing the guy that says the entire election was a farce and fake and fraudulent without any evidence whatsoever? How am I supposed to believe that you, again, the rational conservative, how am I supposed to take you at your word that you're actually a patriot and believe in American democracy the same as I do, and we just disagree on some things, when you're backing the people or covering for the people that are trying to overthrow that democracy? If I'm at home and I've got a guy in my house trying to light the place on fucking fire, I don't have time or inclination to debate with you what we should eat for dinner. And if you keep telling me, don't worry about that guy over there in the corner, he's the crazy one, we just keep him around, or I just keep him around because I think he's useful and he helps pay for the pizza, I'm going to kick you both the hell out of my house. And that's where we're at this point. You have got to quit enabling this. You have got to quit justifying this. You have got to quit excusing this, because it keeps getting worse. It keeps escalating because there's never any real consequences. And if even this has zero real consequences, what comes next? No one in this country is above the law, and that has to include the president, or you will keep seeing shit like this, and it will continue to get worse. If Nixon and everybody that had enabled Nixon had gone to jail, this might have been avoided. But the Republicans back then who voted to impeach Nixon, I can respect. I can agree to disagree with them. Because when the evidence was laid out flat in front of their face, they didn't close their eyes and cover their ears and cover their mouth like the three stupid monkeys saying there's nothing to see here. They said then, the same as I'm saying now, that that was unacceptable. If you evict the Trump supporters from your party, if you quit pandering to the QAnon conspiracy theory nuts, I'm not going to lie to you. You're probably going to lose some elections. You're probably going to lose some power. And you'll have to go back and come up with some new party platforms and some new ways of marketing conservative ideas and thinking. And it might take you some years before you get back to the same level of power and influence that you have now. But you'll be able to do that because people will still be able to vote, and our country will still be a democracy. And you'll still be able to go out and hold rallies. And when you come up with those new ideas and those new populations that you want to try to market yourself to get votes for conservative values and ideas, you won't have to get the okay of someone who lost elections and overturned democracy as a result of it. Make the decision. Because with or without you, as I've said, I am done compromising and negotiating with these people. These treasonous traitors to our country, who looted the United States Capitol. And if you're on the same side of the fence as them and the Proud Boys and the neo-Nazis in America and the KKK and Rudy Giuliani calling for trial by combat to get his way and President fucking Trump, then I'm done with you too. We're going to take a small break and we'll be back afterwards to go into the excuses that the conservatives in this country and that the Trump supporters in this country are trying out to explain why this isn't that bad or why the progressive left and the Democrats are worse, so this is okay. You should keep voting for Trump and Trump supporters and Republicans and conservative conspiracy theory whack jobs. That'll be after the break. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. So, having been in, believe it or not already, countless debates trying to explain why this is unacceptable and why both sides aren't equal and both sides aren't complicit and all that kind of happy nonsense, basically engaging with Trump supporters and former Trump supporters trying to explain why this is justifiable, believe it or not. We're going to run through some of the ideas that have been floated out of the conservative sphere, the alt-right sphere, the hardcore dedicated Trump supporter sphere, as to why this wasn't his fault or why the left is worse or why this should be ignored and it's still justifiable because the other side did it. And then we'll run through why some of that is just complete, utter bullshit. Because what they're doing right now is trying out different pairs of socks until they find one that they think will fit you. The people who don't pay attention to politics and aren't as obsessed with politics as they are, and admittedly as I am. So, the first one. It was justified because there was election fraud. I've done countless episodes on this, so the quick rundown is, all you ever get with this election fraud nonsense is a bunch of people saying that they saw it or saying that there was election fraud. Anytime Trump's attorneys go to court, they are very careful not to say the words election fraud because their law licenses are on the line. This has been brought to court over 60 times at this point, in multiple states, in front of Republican judges, in front of Democratic judges, and in front of judges that Trump personally appointed himself and signed off on. Every single one of them has dismissed it. Throughout all of the election lawsuits, which I believe we're up to 67 at this point, but I may be a touch off by 1 or 2 here, mind you, not by 30. Out of all of the lawsuits related to election fraud, Trump has won exactly one. It was prior to the election results being published, prior to the polls being closed. It was in the state of Pennsylvania. And what it said was that the people that watch the people counting the ballots could stand closer than they were currently allowed to stand. I believe they were allowed to stand 12 feet away, and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, it was a Pennsylvania court, said, that's a little too far. You can move up to 6 feet. Mind you, the 12-foot rule applied to the Democratic observer and the Republican observer. All observers. Mind you, all of this shit was already on camera. So it was still being watched, even if you think 12 feet was too far away. Also, please note, it does not say that even one ballot, not one, was fraudulently cast, fraudulently counted, thrown away, or switched from President Trump to President Biden. Literally all the lawsuit said was, we're standing 12 feet away. We think it's too far. We would like to move to 6 feet. And the court said, I don't see a problem with that. Go ahead. That is the one singular only court case related to the election that President Trump and his great legal team have managed to win. Not just in the state of Pennsylvania, but in the entire fucking country. That is the one they have managed to win. I've said it before on this show. I will believe your claims of massive nationwide election fraud committed to such an extent that it changed the outcome of a presidential election, the minute you can provide more proof that it exists than I can find on YouTube about people being abducted by aliens. Until you can provide evidence about it, I'm not overturning an election. I'm not storming the Capitol building. The same way that until the aliens guy can provide evidence, I'm not building a dome over the country to protect us from the aliens. If you wonder why half the people you talk to in real life, when you start mentioning this stuff, look at you like you're batshit crazy, it's the same reason that you look at your neighbor that claims that aliens abducted him last night like he's batshit crazy. So that covers the election fraud bullshit. Again, I'm still waiting on you to prove your case on that. And so is every court in this country. Every single one of them. The next one's really good and would be hilarious if it wasn't for the fact that we were talking about people who looted the United States Capitol building. I can't stress that enough. Oh, it wasn't Trump supporters. It was Antifa. It was the secret leftist organization that nobody can even prove actually fucking exists and can't point to the leader of. But that's who it was. They were masquerading as Trump supporters in order to make Trump look bad. It was Antifa and BLM. Okay, so here we go again. How much evidence is provided for this? Jack shit fucking zero. That's problem number one. Problem number two. Donald Trump himself told his supporters to march down to the Capitol building and that he was going to march with them. So to buy into this conspiracy theory, I guess Donald Trump was telling his Antifa that he was going to march with him to the Capitol. Problem number three. I don't know a whole lot of Antifa who are out there, 95% white, spending tons of money on Trump flags and MAGA gear, that walk around wearing Camp Auschwitz, you know, the Nazi concentration camp where they gassed tons of Jews to death. I don't know a whole lot of anti-fascist people who are opposed to Nazis and fascism that are walking around wearing a Camp Auschwitz t-shirt. I don't know a whole lot of Antifa that Donald Trump would hang around with. And even if he would, I don't know a whole lot of anti-fascists that would hang out with Donald Trump. And then, even if you want to buy all of that, even if you want to hand wave all of that away, President Trump, when he finally got off his ass and made a statement, told the people in the Capitol, publicly, nationally, this isn't the way to do it. We know you're upset, and we love you. Go find me President Trump sometime before the Capitol was looted, saying that he loves Antifa. I'll wait. The next one. The majority of protesters were peaceful. It was just a few crazies that got out of hand. Yeah, the problem is President Trump has been speaking directly to these crazies for fucking months. This is why it was such a big deal when he couldn't condemn white supremacists and white nationalists and the Proud Boys during the first presidential debate. This is why it was such a big deal when he was talking about the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally in 2017, where a woman was killed after one of these whack jobs drove a fucking car into a crowd. I believe he injured 5 or 6 people and killed one poor woman that was a counter-protester. This is why calling these people, the ones who just stormed the Capitol and the ones that were at Unite the Right in 2017, calling them very fine people is probably not a good damn idea. If I go to your neighborhood and tell the gangs, the Bloods and the Crips, and any drug cartels to come with me, to meet me there, and then I tell them, those people in that house, they're the problem. They're snitches. It's a really nice house. I don't want anything to happen to them. But they could cause you problems. The cartel goes and shoots up your house. I'm still legally responsible. If I go tell a schizophrenic on a corner, a guy that's got mental problems, that's homeless, that thinks that aliens are sending him messages from outer space, if I go tell him it's not really the aliens, it's Bob. That guy goes and kills Bob, I'm still legally responsible. He's had plenty of chances to denounce these supporters of his. And that's why denouncing these supporters of his is important. Because when you keep telling them that they're your people in order to get their votes, they might actually fucking believe you. Do I think that every Trump supporter at that rally was involved in this? No. Do I think that every Trump supporter there knew that these guys were there? Yes. And I've said it before, and I will say it again. I don't know a single person that I consider a very fine person or a good person that shows up to any kind of protest and sees a group of neo-Nazis standing on the corner on the same side as they are that stays at the protest. I'm packing up and I'm going home if that happens to me. And every decent person I know feels the same way. Hell, you can take the protest out of it. If I go to the mall to take my 5-year-old to see Santa Claus and there's a group of neo-Nazis standing in line to get pictures of their kids taken with Santa Claus, I'll go find a different fucking mall. Or I'll come back later. You gave them cover. You encouraged them. You told them this shit was acceptable. And these are the consequences. The president said peacefully a few times. Gee, that's a nice democracy you have there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. Man, I really like your shoes. In a dark alley while I'm holding the gun. I didn't threaten you. I didn't say, give me your shoes or I'm going to bust a cap in your ass. But everybody knows exactly what's going on. And this is no different. So at least try to be honest. Like I said, I'm not talking to the rational conservatives except the ones that are giving these assholes cover. You want to clean up this house and we can go back to arguing over tax rates? Hey, I'm game. But you got to quit giving these guys cover and you got to quit platforming them. You got to quit saying their behavior is acceptable as long as they vote for you. Oh, but the BLM riots. The left was all in favor of the riots and the burning during BLM, so that makes this okay. I'm glad Democrats have finally come around to being against violence in rallies and protests. What serious candidate held a rally at a BLM protest and then told the crowd to go march down to the courthouse and threaten the lawmakers? Did I miss this? That's problem number one. What candidate has gotten up and called the rioters very fine people? My position on BLM is the same that it always has been. Arrest anybody who commits arson. Arrest anybody that incited those people to commit arson, that told them to go out and burn shit. Throw them all in jail. But BLM as a whole continues to get to protest because they have a constitutional right to. My position now, arrest the people that stormed the Capitol, all of them. Arrest the people that incited those people to go storm the Capitol. I'm sorry that includes your favorite president, but it does. That doesn't mean that the Republican Party no longer gets to hold any rallies, no longer gets to hold any protests. Just because you had a few idiots out there causing violence and a few more idiots out there encouraging those people to cause violence doesn't mean I want to break up the entire Republican Party. The same way that just because BLM had a few bad actors and a few people out there committing violence doesn't mean you get to break up all of BLM. Perfectly consistent to me. Whether you agree or disagree with them, and I disagree with Republicans on plenty, just like my conservative viewers disagree with BLM, doesn't remove their right to protest. But the ones who descend into violence, the ones who descend into anarchy, the ones who encourage that dissent, yeah, arrest them. And I've been consistent on that. My question to the conservatives who are excusing Trump and his supporters now is, why the hell aren't you consistent on it? Also, obviously, speaking from a former military background, if the CIA went over to a foreign country and burned down a gas station, it would be bad. That country would be pissed. That country might take some actions against the United States. If the CIA went over to a foreign country and took over their legislative building to try to stop them from counting ballots and electing a president, that would be called a fucking coup. You see how these two things are just a little bit different? Slightly different scale here? That doesn't mean that it's okay to burn down a gas station. Just like when you stub your toe, it fucking hurts. But if you give me a choice between a stubbed toe and somebody getting stabbed in the neck, it seems pretty obvious which one I should look at a lot more seriously to me. And that's why, because this one folds into the next one, the Capitol is just a building. I think the whole country is sacred, is a bunch of bullshit. It's just a way to hand wave this away. Even if you want to assume that the Capitol is just concrete and stone and marble, and it doesn't matter. Okay, well then the gas station is concrete. Probably not stone and marble so much, but it's still concrete and just a building. But the entire presidential line of succession was there. In other words, everybody else that can become president if Trump is not able to be president. You had the vice president, you had the Speaker of the House, you had the Senate majority leaders. Everybody down the chain of command. And again, if we send the military over to a foreign country and we kidnap a gas station manager, that's not okay. But if we send the military over to a foreign country and kidnap the vice president, the heads of both of their legislative branches, and all of their lawmakers, because we didn't like their election results, that's a fucking coup. That doesn't make taking the gas station attendant okay, but it's a whole magnitude of difference. The last one, and the one that they're probably going to stick with, is now Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and countless other social media platforms have now banned Donald Trump. completely. So now they're going to turn it into a, well, I don't agree with the man, but the First Amendment says he's got a right to have his voice heard. And they'll try and argue about that instead of arguing about the fact that the Capitol got looted. Twitter is a private company. The First Amendment applies to the government. The government does not own Twitter. From the beginning of our country, from the time the First Amendment was fucking written, the First Amendment has never said that any citizen has the right to write a letter to a newspaper editor and that newspaper has to publish their letter. No. The First Amendment says that the government can't come and tell you you can't write that letter. That the government can't tell the newspaper that they can't publish that letter. It has nothing to do with whether or not the newspaper, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, chooses to publish your content, your letter, your tweet, your Facebook post. Unless you think Twitter should be nationalized, that the government should buy Twitter or seize it, then Twitter is a private fucking platform and they get to make their own damn decisions, the same way a newspaper editor gets to. Also, Trump is the president of the United States. He is literally the prime example of what the First Amendment is supposed to protect you from. The president telling you you can't say something. Congress telling you you can't say something. So it would be very difficult for the president, the head of the federal government, to make any kind of First Amendment case. My own government is censoring me, the head of the government? I know QAnon conspiracy theory thinking likes to go in circles, but that's a pretty good one for me. Lastly, no one has silenced this president. He has a press room in his house, in the White House. He can call a press conference anytime he wants. He might have to face some questions from reporters that he might not want to answer. But you think, seriously, if President Donald Trump, after inciting this mess, decided to call a press conference, that zero journalist would show up with a news camera and a microphone? Go back and look at the video of President Bill Clinton's press conference after he admitted he got a blowjob. I'm pretty sure that happens more often than every 200 years. And that press room was packed. I will bet you any amount of money you would like that if President Donald Trump decided to call a press conference, his press room would be equally packed. His First Amendment rights haven't been violated. You see that? And that's more access to get your message out than you or I have. Because if I call a press conference, I bet I don't get dozens, hundreds, thousands of journalists showing up at my house, at my studio. But my First Amendment rights haven't been violated either. So in that, President Trump and I are equal. Last thing we're going to cover for the day. Former California governor, Republican, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, put out a message today that I think conservatives really need to listen to. The real ones, not the loons. It's about 7.5 minutes. Arnold Schwarzenegger's father served in the German army during World War II. Arnold Schwarzenegger is an immigrant from Austria, which was part of Germany during World War II. And the conservatives that are still voting for Republicans that are enabling this, that still will not hold Donald Trump accountable, need to look at the path they're letting this country go down. And maybe you can't hear it from me. Maybe you can't hear it from those on my side of the aisle. Maybe Fox News and One American News Network and Newsmax have managed to demonize anybody that identifies as left or progressive or liberal or Democrat so much that you can't even listen to the words coming out of my mouth, that you can't look at any of the evidence I present to you. But Arnold Schwarzenegger is a Republican, and a Republican who got elected in the Democratic stronghold of California. Obviously a capitalist, and obviously a very successful one. So we're going to close on that, and I will not be back after the end of the video. I thank you for watching, and I encourage you to share that video with any Republican that just flat will not listen to you if you're a progressive or a Democrat or identify as on the left. We cannot heal until we remove the cancer. And cancer does not go away by ignoring it, by pretending it's not there, and by just saying, I wish I was healthy. Not dealing with this will make it worse, not better.
As an immigrant to this country, I would like to say a few words to my fellow Americans and to our friends around the world about the events of recent days. Now, I grew up in Austria. I'm very aware of Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass. It was a night of rampage against the Jews carried out in 1938 by the Nazi equivalent of the Proud Boys. Wednesday was the day of broken glass right here in the United States. The broken glass was in the windows of the United States Capitol. But the mob did not just shatter the windows of the Capitol, they shattered the ideals we took for granted. They did not just break down the doors of the building that housed the American democracy, they trampled the very principles on which our country was founded. Now, I grew up in the ruins of a country that suffered the loss of its democracy. I was born in 1947, 2 years after the Second World War. Growing up, I was surrounded by broken men drinking away their guilt over their participation in the most evil regime in history. Not all of them were rabid anti-Semites or Nazis. Many just went along, step by step, down the road. They were the people next door. Now, I've never shared this so publicly because it is a painful memory. But my father would come home drunk once or twice a week, and he would scream and hit us and scare my mother. I did not hold him totally responsible because our neighbor was doing the same thing to his family, and so was the next neighbor over. I heard it with my own ears and saw it with my own eyes. They were in physical pain from the shrapnel in their bodies and in emotional pain from what they saw or did. It all started with lies and lies and lies and intolerance. So being from Europe, I have seen firsthand how things can spin out of control. I know there is a fear in this country and all over the world that something like this could happen right here. Now, I do not believe it is, but I do believe that we must be aware of the dire consequences of selfishness and cynicism. President Trump sought to overturn the results of an election, and of a fair election. He sought a coup by misleading people with lies. My father and our neighbors were misled also with lies, and I know where such lies lead. President Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president ever. The good thing is that he soon will be as irrelevant as an old tweet. But what are we to make of those elected officials who have enabled his lies and his treachery? I will remind them of what Teddy Roosevelt said. Patriotism means to stand by the country. It does not mean to stand by the president. Now, John F. Kennedy wrote a book called Profiles in Courage. A number of members of my own party, because of their own spinelessness, would never see their names in such a book, I guarantee you. They're complicit with those who carried the flag of self-righteous insurrection into the Capitol. But it did not work. Our democracy held firm. Within hours, the Senate and the House of Representatives were doing the people's business and certifying the election of President-elect Biden. What a great display of democracy. Now, I grew up Catholic. I went to church, to Catholic school. I learned the Bible and my catechism and all this. And from those days, I remember a phrase that is relevant today: a servant's heart. It means serving something larger than yourself. See, what we need right now from our elected representatives is a public servant's heart. We need public servants that serve something larger than their own power or their own party. We need public servants who will serve higher ideals, the ideals in which this country was founded, the ideals that other countries look up to. Now, over the past few days, friends from all over the world have been calling me distraught and worried about us as a nation. One woman was in tears about America, wonderful tears of idealism about what America should be. Those tears should remind us of what America means to the world. Now, I've told everyone who has called that as heartbreaking as all of this is, America will come back from these dark days and shine our lights once again. Now, you see this sword? This is the Conan sword. Now, here's the thing about swords. The more you temper a sword, the stronger it becomes. The more you pound it with a hammer and then heat it in the fire and then thrust it into the cold water and then pound it again and plunge it into the fire and into the water, the more often you do that, the stronger it becomes. I'm not telling you all this because I wanted to become an expert sword maker, but our democracy is like the steel of this sword. The more it is tempered, the stronger it becomes. Our democracy has been tempered by wars, injustices, and insurrections. I believe, as shaken as we are by the events of recent days, we will come out stronger because we now understand what can be lost. We need reforms, of course, so that this never ever happens again. We need to hold accountable the people that brought us to this unforgivable point. And we need to look past ourselves, our parties and disagreements, and put our democracy first. And we need to heal together from the trauma of what has just happened. We need to heal not as Republicans or as Democrats, but as Americans. Now, to begin this process, no matter what your political affiliation is, I ask you to join me in saying to President-elect Biden, President-elect Biden, we wish you great success as our president. If you succeed, our nation succeeds. We support you with all our hearts as you seek to bring us together. And to those who think they can overturn the United States Constitution, know this: you will never win. President-elect Biden, we stand with you today, tomorrow, and forever in defense of our democracy from those who would threaten it. May God bless all of you, and may God bless America.